Have we finally gotten a true copy of the famed Colt submachine gun? Not just a lower that takes Colt mags, but a realistic clone of the original weapon. Colt has released plenty of 9mm carbines that take their famed magazines, but they've never released anything quite like the original Colt submachine gun. Colt might not have, but H&R, a brand now owned by Palmetto State Armory, certainly has. It's true that full auto is off the table due to the Hughes Amendment, and so it's more of a semi-auto clone. It's also not a rifle or a short-barreled rifle, because adding a stock would make the gun subject to NFA regulations. The H&R 635 SMG is a large format pistol featuring the new H&R brace. It has the look and feel of a classic submachine gun, but has a semi-auto design. Now, PSA does a lot of good, but their QC has been hit or miss in the past. Does the 635 measure up, especially for its $1,000 plus price tag? So the Colt submachine gun came out in the 1980s. Colt has called a number of guns submachine guns throughout the years. This includes a 5.56 caliber rifle that they called a submachine gun before we all decided that was dumb and pistol calibers were submachine guns. They also had the Department of Energy submachine gun, which is really sweet, and I do hope PSA brings that to light. We did see one at SHOT Show. I'm getting off the subject. So, in 1982, Colt was watching HK eat their lunch. They had the submachine gun of choice for professional military forces, special operations, police forces, counterterrorism forces. Any kind of good guy who was on a tactical team had an MP5. Colt wanted some of that sweet submachine gun dough, and they already had the Car 15 series. So it was a pretty simple idea. We'll just create a 9mm submachine gun in the format of an AR-15. The gun did use a closed bolt, which was important for reliability, accuracy, and safety. The closed bolt was a big reason why the MP5 was so beloved. So the MP5 also has the Teutonic patented roller delayed system to lock the breech, but Colt went with a simpler direct blowback design. Now there are some downsides to direct blowback, namely recoil, but we'll address that a bit more later. So Colt's big advantage over HK was the fact that they had the AR-15 ergonomics, which we all know were pretty damn nice. The inline stock, the excellent controls, the ambidextrous charging handle is all really great. The MP5 has terrible ergonomics, always has, and they can't really seem to change it. So while the MP5 was beloved, the Colt submachine gun had much better ergonomics, and it even had a last round hold open, which brings us to the magazines. So Colt needed a magazine for their new gun, and anyone who's developed a firearm knows just how tricky it is to design a reliable magazine. So Colt didn't design one; they just grabbed Uzi mags, kind of. They modified Uzi mags. They obviously had to change the magazine catch to work, but essentially a Colt SMG mag is not that much different from an Uzi mag. So these magazines held 32 rounds of 9mm, which continues the tradition of submachine gun magazine capacities that are easily divisible by 8. Let's take a little fun fact break here. Do you know why so many submachine gun magazines use 32 rounds as a standard capacity instead of just 30? It's essentially because the Germans did it. The Germans did it because they issued ammo in 16-round boxes. They issued ammo in 16-round boxes for the Luger, which held 8 rounds, and officers had 2 magazines. Since Germans are history's autistic engineers, they designed the MP-18 and later MP-40 to accept 32-round magazines, so each magazine consumed 2 boxes of ammo. And that's our fun fact break for the day. Now it's easy to see why H&R named their gun the 635 SMG. Colt produced several submachine guns, especially in that early era. This includes the 633, which was the Department of Energy submachine gun. There's also the 634, which is actually semi-auto only, but has the third hole, so you can convert it to a machine gun very easily. But the real standard bearer for the Colt submachine gun has always been the Colt 635. Colt did make a lot of really cool submachine guns, and they're kind of my favorite of Colt's guns. My real favorite would be the Colt 635 SD, which was used by the DEA, I think it's CLET team. This was a lab raid team, and these were integrally suppressed. Knights Armament, I believe, designed the suppressor. And these days, they even still produce a very modern M5 submachine gun. So the H&R 635 is a product of its era, or, well, I guess it's a product of the era it's cloning. The era is 2024, but it's cloning the 635. So it means it features the fixed carry handle upper. It has those old plastic handguards we all love, and A1 birdcage muzzle device at the end of a 10.5-inch barrel. It even has a bayonet lug, which is kind of just a leftover from the FSB. Colt didn't really change those around just because they put it on a submachine gun. The barrel's too small to mount a bayonet like a traditional one, but I really love some kind of silly little bayonet to toss on there. The brace is the HAR-15 brace, and it has some real old school Car 15 like vibes that really help sell the retro look and feel of the gun. It's a very thin and blade like brace. It does have several sling ports, including a QD port at the very end of the brace, because you wouldn't put this against your shoulder. We get the old nubby A2 grip, a sling swivel up front, and we also get that massive brass deflector that's really eye-catching. It's worth noting it's not just a brass deflector, but also helps with the rather gassy output of a blowback weapon. This was identical to the Colt guns, and Rock River Arms also put some of these on their early 9mm carbines. It's kind of neat to see. It really says that H&R paid some really good attention to detail when designing this gun. I was extremely excited to get to the range and shoot the H&R 635 SMG. I just love retro guns, and I don't think there's been a lot of retro 9mm carbines come out. Lots of A1s and A2s, but nothing like this. So the gun comes with one magazine, and I already had 2 spares on tap and loaded. As soon as I got the gun home, I was ready to shoot. The first thing I did was just do a quick test to see if the sights were on, and it turned out they were, which is nice because I hate adjusting iron sights. They were dead on at 25 yards. I used the iron sights and I was drilling like one ragged hole into this FBI Q target. He was having a real bad day. So I then took it back to 50 yards to really check the sights and repeatedly rang this 10-inch gong I have. I missed a couple times at first, but I kind of got my holds right and I realized I suck with iron sights. After that, I did something what I call the minute of bad guy test. It's a Sage Dynamics target, so it's printed on a normal letter size piece of paper. So I set the target up and I go all the way back to 100 yards and I fire 7 rounds. If the majority of the rounds hit the target, it's minute of bad guy accurate. It's a test I only do with PCCs. H&R delivered 6 of the 7 rounds to the target, and 1 just hit a little bit low. So it hits the minute of bad guy accuracy requirement. Like the original Colt 635, this model uses an A1 style sight. An A2 rear sight is a bit much for a 9mm. However, I would have appreciated the A2 apertures, specifically the wide one. We get the A150 and 100 yard peeps. Both just feel way too small for a gun designed primarily for use within 25 to 50 yards. A more open aperture would be really nice, but it's a catch-22. If we had that open A2 style sight, this would be less of a clone. If we're going to start changing things, why don't we just add a flat top upper and red dot and call it a day? What we really want is that originality, and that's kind of the charm of the H&R 635. Let's talk about the downside of a blowback operated gun. It does not have a locked breech, so what we do get is more recoil. Now the inline design of the AR really helps with recoil and muzzle rise, but this thing still recoils kind of like a 5.56 caliber rifle. That's not a lot of recoil by any means, but it's more than you'd expect from a 9mm. With something like a radial delayed gun or HK's roller delayed guns, you have a significantly less recoil and a much smoother shooting weapon. Brace does help stabilize the gun, but man, if you use this incorrectly by putting it against your shoulder, which none of us would ever do, it hits your shoulder hard with that thin rear portion. It is best described as a blade. I don't think this thing could ever be confused for a stock because it's not super comfortable to shoot. You just kind of got to man up and grit through it. With that in mind, the 635 is very easy to control. I could blaze through bill drills in under 2 seconds. Double taps are super easy. Mozambique drills are always fun. And just any kind of shooting was a blast. It was very, very easy. Shooting behind and around cover wasn't tough, and moving and shooting was a breeze. The gun's short length makes it effortless to drive between targets. I ran a series of drills with 4 stills targets spread about 10 feet apart and could easily score 4 hits in less than 4 seconds. Stick mags are really nice and they make reloads quick and easy. These mags are all metal and they just kind of fall out as soon as you hit the button. They also insert straight up, so it's very intuitive. Just don't drop a full magazine or it will start spewing rounds. Also, these magazines are a bit sensitive to dirt. I noticed after doing a ton of reloads, I shoot primarily in like a sandy environment, and one of the magazines started sticking, so I had to take the bottom off, clean it out, rush it with water, and it was fine after that. Just be cautious. I used 115 grain brass cased ammo in testing. I just don't have a lot of other ammo at the moment to test. I used a whole case of Cellier and Bellet, which I'm probably pronouncing terribly, but S&B, and it blazed through it all without any failures. I never cleaned the thing, and you can tell, blowback operation is absolutely filthy, but X35 still ran like an absolute champ. So, has PSA and H&R created a worthy clone of the Colt submachine gun and a semi-auto large format pistol? I believe so. I am very impressed with this gun. I love shooting it. Normally after a review, I might shoot the gun a few more times before I return it, but this isn't the case here. I'm going to shoot this thing, and I'm going to love this thing, and I'm going to own it forever. It is an awesome clone of a classic submachine gun that's not widely available. It is truly something different in the AR market, which is kind of rare these days. The retro look and feel are accurate to the original to an NFA, free degree, as close as we can get without a tag stamp. Now, because it's kind of this old school look, I wouldn't really suggest it as a home defense gun. Sure, you shoot someone with a 9mm from an iron sight gun, it's no different than shooting them with a red dot. It's still going to be a lethal round. I'm not saying that, but it's just not optimized for that role. I think most shooters would be better off with a flat top upper, an optic, a handguard, so you can attach a white light, and all that kind of fun stuff. With this gun, while it is accurate and reliable and easy to shoot, it's just not optimized for that defensive role. It's a retro fun gun, and that's perfectly fine. Most guns are fun guns. My overall plan is to attend a local steel challenge match with this thing. I don't think I'll win, but I bet I'll have tons of fun. That's the exact intent and purpose of this gun. It's fun. If you're willing to have fun and you're willing to spend the money to have fun, you're gonna love this gun. This gun is expensive. I think it's like $1,100-ish, but you are paying for a lot of attention to detail and a very fun, very reliable, very easy shooting gun. So if you've always been interested in the Colt submachine gun, you've always wanted one. I'm a huge submachine gun nut, especially in 1960s to 80s, basically Cold War submachine guns. Then you're gonna be really satisfied by this thing. Give it a look, and you'll soon figure out why it was always kind of the better option when compared to the MP5.